everyone, welcome to the world of English with Sakshi Khanna once again. I hope you all are fine and doing wonders in your own academics simultaneously. So today's topic is for grade 12 book VISTA chapter 2, that is The Enemy by Pearl's Buck. Before I start the chapter, I just brief you up with the story. The story highlights how a Japanese doctor saved the life of an American prisoner of war and rises above narrow national prejudice. He risks his honor, career, position, and life by sheltering a war prisoner of the enemy camp and saving his life. The author has beautifully portrayed the conflict in the doctor's mind as a private individual and as a citizen with a sense of national loyalty. Being an Indian, I have to be dutiful toward my country. Yes, indeed. If professionally I am a doctor, utmost duty to save the life of the person because humanity is on the top everywhere. So this message this chapter is giving you today. So let us start with The Enemy by Pearl's Buck, grade 12 book VISTA. Okay guys, before I start technically, The Enemy by Pearl S. Buck, I just want to tell you about today's session. In today's session, we will be doing the difficult word meanings, the plot of the story, the main incidents of the story, and the detailed summary. Okay, and tomorrow in the session, we will continue tomorrow as well. The Enemy by Pearl S. Buck, the detailed explanation, line by line explanation with your textbook. So tomorrow session you need to open your textbook as well as PDF form based textbooks, but it is mandatory for you all. So let us talk about The Enemy, Pearl S. Buck. What do you mean by enemy? The person who is against. Okay, and we always think that the person will harm us, or maybe he has harmed you somewhere. So the enemy gives the message here in the story that humanism transcends. Transcends means when we become biased. We become biased and we think from one side, situational. We are not thinking. In the story, being a doctor, his utmost duty to save the life of the person. Okay, but if he will become biased, okay, or he will think of like Trojan, then he will not save the person life and he will go against the moral sense, against the inner conscience. That is why in The Enemy, this has been shown to us that Dr. Sadao, the name of the person, the main character, upholds the ethics of medical profession. There are some ethics of every profession, but in medical profession where we consider doctor as God, in treating an enemy, the story is a good lesson of peace, love, sympathy, fellow feeling and humanism. The story starts at house of Dr. Sadao, a house built on a narrow beach near the sea. Little bit about the author here, Pearl S. Buck, Pulitzer Prize, Nobel Prize winner, who believes in brotherhood, equality. That is why in the story you will see these all characteristics properly. Let's move now. Theme properly based on humanism transcends. The story reveals the conflict between East and West. In East, Japan. In West, there is America. Okay, so background, US and Japanese war. If you remember, and you must have read in the history of 10th class, that 1941 Second World War. So Japanese were superior over Americans in that, but the war was finished by dropping 2 major bombs, nuclear bombs by America. So the enemy see the circle of the enemy. The person becomes doctor named Dr. Sadao. Okay, see by the animation or the graphics I can explain you. Got married, okay, saved the life of a soldier, and he is an American soldier. He made him healthy and send him back to the country safely. Plot of the story here, The Enemy, background US-Japan war. Dr. Sadao Hoki, a Japanese of 22, age 22, studied surgery in America. Marries to Hannah, his wife name, encounters a man Tom near ocean, a man of 17, age 17, having USA Navy. Helps him, he's wounded as gun wound reopen. Soon he recovers. Plan to kill Tom. Couldn't execute his plan. Tom recovers completely. Author decides to leave him to a deserted island nearby. Reminds him of all Americans. So these are some points which we will be discussing during the reading. The hard words which we will encounter in the story. Stepping, lift and set down one's foot or one foot after the other in order to walk somewhere or move to a new position. Stepping means movement, okay? So here whatever the meaning you are getting, it is according to the context of the story only. So don't get confused, and you will be getting all the notes by evening today. Infinite, limitless or endless in space, extent or size, impossible to measure or calculate. Infinite, just keep in mind, limitless. Troop, soldiers or armed forces. Anxious, feeling or showing worry, nervousness or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. Stagger, walk or move unsteadily as if about to fall. Staggering walk. Mist, a cloud of tiny water droplets suspended in the atmosphere at or near the Earth's surface that limits visibility to a lesser extent than fog, strictly with visibility remaining above 1 kilometer. Misty look, we always talk, misty look outside. Crawling, move forward on the hands and knees or by dragging the body close to the ground. Crawling, the crawling movement of a baby. Spike, impale on or pierce with a sharp point. Prisoner, a person legally committed to prison as a punishment for a crime or while awaiting trial. Gazing, look steadily and intently, especially in admiration, surprise or thought. Menace, a person or thing that is likely to cause harm, a threat or danger. Steaming, giving off steam. Conviction, a formal declaration by the verdict of a jury or the decision of a judge in a court of law that someone is guilty of a criminal offense. Ebbing, move away from the land. Recede. So these are some hard words which we will be doing while reading the chapter, line to line explanation. Talking about the characters in the story, some major and the minor characters. Dr. Sadao Hockey, a Japanese doctor trained by Americans. Number second, Sadao's father, much concerned about his son's education, a true patriot. Number 3, Hannah, wife of Dr. Sadao, met in America, became friends and got married in Japan. Number 4, Tom, an American prisoner of war, a soldier of US Navy. Number 5, the old general, a sick Japanese army general, needed an operation, trusted only Dr. Sadao. Number 6, an officer, a messenger of the general. Number 7, gardener, an old gardener in the house of Dr. Sadao. Number 8, Yimi Hannah's maid servant. Number 9, the cook, an old cook in the house of Dr. Sadao. So these are the characters which we will be doing in the story. Main points of the story here. Dr. Sadao, a Japanese surgeon, finds a wounded American soldier on the beach near his house. He is unable to throw him back into sea, though he was his enemy. Being a doctor, his first duty was to save a life. Number 3, Hannah, his wife, though initially reluctant, joins her husband in operating and nursing the enemy soldier back to health. Number 4, it is dangerous to keep the enemy in the house, so all the servants left. Hannah does the housework alone. Number 5, the general didn't send Sadao with the troops as he is an expert surgeon and the general might need him anytime for an emergency operation. Number 6, the even general comes to know that Sadao is harboring his enemy. He doesn't take any action and suggests that he would send his private assassins, assassins means people, to kill the enemy and remove his body. Number 7. Dr. Sadao performs an emergency operation and succeeds. Number 8. The general promises a reward and saves the life of Dr. Sadao, who in return helps the American soldier escape in his boat. I hope you understood the incidents, all the incidents in 8 points. Now we will be moving to the detailed summary of the story. Before we read, it is a time of the World War. An American prisoner of war is washed ashore in a dying state and is found at the doorstep of a Japanese doctor. Should he save him as a doctor or hand him over to the army as a patriot? So this is a question based text which I am giving to you to think. If you are a doctor and you are getting a patient, first you will check the nationality of the patient, or you will first save his life. So the story is set during the Second World War. A Japanese doctor finds an American POW at his doorstep. He is in a dilemma that being a doctor, should he save the wounded man, or being a Japanese, should he hand over the enemy to the army? Here the summary of the story. The enemy tells the story of a Japanese doctor who hates Americans because of his patriotism, as America and Japan were at war that time. One day an American prisoner of war is washed ashore at the shore of the sea in front of a Japanese doctor's house. Because I shared with you the location of the house of the doctor is at the seashore. So the soldier is wounded and has evidently escaped from prison. Dr. Sadao's house was a solitary house on the seashore. Single house, that means single house. Dr. Sadao and Hannah ran to help. The American sailor was bleeding badly. They thought of throwing him back into the sea, but they couldn't do so. Dr. Sadao carried him home. Hannah washes the soldier, as Yumi, the servant, refused to do so. All the servants refused to do so, and they just show the patriotic feeling. But he was also a big sign of humanism, including patriotism. But first he fulfilled the duty as a doctor. Sadao operates on the American. He returned with his surgeon's emergency bag. He turned over the wounded soldier who lay unconscious. He washed his back and asked Hannah to help him. He wanted her to give the patient the anesthetic. Hannah had never seen an operation and she felt like vomiting, because you know that medical profession, it's tearful profession. You need to be very much courageous, while dealing with the patients, the wounds, the cuts, the blood, the surgery, the theater, because the terror in the theater, the terror of the instruments, really very hard to bear. So Hannah, she was a normal woman. So Hannah had never seen an operation and she felt like vomiting. Sadao saw the bullet in the wound. Hannah observed that there were red scars on the soldier's neck and realized that he had been tortured as well. Sadao removed the bullet from the wound and declared that the American would survive. Means he is out of danger now. Sadao and Hannah look after the American, but the servants were becoming restless. The gardener felt the prisoner should have been allowed to bleed to death. On the 7th day, the servants leave Sadao's house. They did not work that morning. Hannah paid them their wages and see them off. They cried as they left. Hannah held back her tears because they were so attached to each other. The gardener was there since he was a boy. Yumi was attached to the children. Hannah had to do all the household work on her own. Hannah wanted Sadao to get rid of the American quickly. Even the wife also wanted to get rid from the get rid of the American quickly as soon as possible. Sadao promised to do something about it. In the evening, a messenger in uniform arrived. Hannah was paralyzed with fright, means she got scared very badly. She felt the servants must have complained and the messengers had come to arrest Sadao. The fears were unfounded, as the old journal has been suffering from an ailment. Ailment, some medical problem. Okay, but they thought in the uniform when they got the soldier at door, and they thought that they have been informed by the servants who left them that we are treating an American in our house, which is a great offense. Sadao had been treating him and the general was in pain and had sent for him. In fact, the general has sent a message for his own illness. So when their perception went wrong, the general trusted Sadao. He knew he might need to be operated upon because of some medical issue. That's why Sadao was not sent away with the troops. Sadao told the general about the American. The general replied that Sadao was indispensable and could not be arrested because there was some issue, medical issue, and he was trustworthy doctor, so he didn't want to punish him for his offense. Then the general suggested a way, means a way should be there, that he didn't want to punish doctor, and another side he didn't want to keep the soldier in the country as well. Then the general suggested a way out. He would send two of his private assassins to his house to kill the American quietly and remove the body. This was a suggestion made by general. Sadao agreed to the plan. Sadao waited for 3 nights. No assassins arrived. He waited. Full loyalty he showed. The American was getting better. He thanked Sadao. Sadao found it difficult to keep the American in his house any longer. When he got well, then it was very difficult for both to keep him safely in the house for any longer. As doctor was instructed by the general and he was tired of waiting for the assassins to do away with the American prisoner, Dr. Sadao decided to help him to escape. Now he changed his mind. Sadao provided him with his boat. He gave his own boat to him. He put food, water and a quilt in his boat. He also gave the American his flashlight. There was an uninhabited island very close to the shore. He guided him the way. See the humanity, how he followed both the things. He told the American to sail to the island. He could live there till he found a Korean fishing boat pass by the island. Then he could seek help and escape to freedom. He warned the American not to make any fire. He could catch fish and eat it raw. So he instructed not to cook the fish as well. Why? He was warned not to make any fire, otherwise he would be caught by the Japanese soldier. How careful he was, how concerned he was toward the soldier. Not toward the soldier, I must say, towards his patient. Here is the explanation when he was left with the boat. It was a moonless night when the American sailed away to the island where he was guided. Sadao was again called by the general. He operated on the general. Sadao told the general that the prisoner had escaped, means ran away. The general recalled that he had failed to send the assassins as he had forgotten to keep his promise. Then he was feeling guilty. The general was feeling guilty because he made the promise to send the assassin, but he didn't do so. So he was feeling guilty over that. He added that it was not because of a lack of patriotism nor dereliction of duty. He was simply absorbed in his own affairs. He added that it is just because of the busyness in his own affairs, as he is the general of the country. Sadao realized that he was safe, but he assured the general that he would ever remain loyal to him. He gave assurance of his loyalty to the general. As the American had left, all the servants returned. Why they had returned back? Because there was no problem in the relation. They were just feeling scary because it was an offense which he made, but they were not thinking that he is a doctor first. Things came back to normal. Doctor remembered the American and hated him, but did not know why he had saved the prisoner's life. So let's summarize in a nutshell what we have done today. The story is set in the times of World War II. Doctor is a Japanese doctor who is an expert surgeon and scientist. He found an American prisoner of war at his threshold who is bleeding and is in a dying state. Initially, Dr. Sadao and his wife Hannah thought of throwing the unconscious man back into the sea but couldn't do so. Finally, they brought him home. Dr. Sadao operated upon him with the help of his wife. They both had to face the protest of the servant. Protest means they all left as they refused to clean the man and left in protest. So the man starts recovering slowly. One day, Dr. Sadao had to go to see the general. Dr. Sadao, while treating the general, tells him about the American in his house because he was so loyal to his country. So he shared each and everything. The general promised to send his personal assassins to quietly kill the American. Dr. Sadao doesn't tell his wife about this plan and keeps on waiting for the assassins for 3 nights, but they do not turn up. By this time, the American has recovered. Now Dr. Sadao decides to send him to an unguarded island in the sea. He guided him properly. He gives him a boat, torch, lots of food and water and a flashlight. He instructs him to stay on that island and wait for a Korean boat. He also tells him to signal him 2 flashes if runs out of food before he takes a boat. So how nicely he guided. Before I sign you off today, I just want to brief you up about the story deals with the conflict between man's humane feeling and prejudice created by nations at war. It deals with the universal human values which must take precedence. Precedence, it's a status of giving priority, means status establish a set status in order of importance or urgency over narrow considerations like nationalism. The bond uniting all human beings must transcend. Transcend means surpass or exceed, be greater in scope, means more than that. The difference between nations. The story deals with the conflict between a man's duty towards the state and his own conscience, means the moral sense. In fact, the story raises questions about the ethics of a human being. At the time of war, Dr. Sadao has been brought up in a traditional and patriotic environment and he dislikes Americans. But at the same time, he is a doctor and cannot let the American bleed to death. The story condemns racial discrimination and hails the superiority of humanity above any other thing, means on the top humanity is there. Sadao and General Tekima, a critical analysis of 2 central characters in the lesson, the enemy. The central theme of the lesson deals with the paradox. Paradox means 2 contradiction. Okay, you will see in the status, but both are logically. Okay, if we talk about the patriotism, that is also required, it is mandatory, and to fulfill the duty, that is also required. So both are based on the logic but contradict to each other. Okay, so how a human being can also be termed as the enemy of a nation which is at war with another nation. Being an enemy, he was treated properly, he was cared properly, and he was so concerned. So he was not an enemy, actually. So this is the message of the story. Tomorrow, line by line explanation with the textbook. You all are instructed. Tomorrow, please be seated with your textbooks when you will receive my online video. Till the time, stay protected, stay safe, support your parents, and please work mindfully. Thank you so much. Goodbye.